Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we're going to go over the 5 most popular teams in Great League according to Go Battle Log. This was tweeted out by YTX Pikachu. Let's actually just jump into the sources. So these are the sources of information. YTX Pikachu, go ahead, check him out on Twitter. He posts a bunch of data, collaborates with Go Battle Log to come up with the user submitted teams that people use and the battle against. Really great website, really great person to follow on Twitter, so give him a follow. Also check out Go Stadium. Go Stadium has a link to, or I'll post a link or include in the description of the great GBL cores. So these are all the most common teams in Go Battle League, and as well what are the core breakers for those ones. And then obviously pvpoke.com, a fantastic website, amazing website. I don't really need to say anything more about it. Just like absolutely incredible and a pleasure to have it in part of our community. What I'm going to be doing is going over the 5 most popular teams, their movesets, how I would play different leads and counter switches, and then some further thoughts. And then as well, I'll credit who I've seen use this team, and then as well, including the pinned comment, the list of videos that you can check out if you want to check out some like instructive videos or Twitch streams or whichever. So the first one is Stunfisk, Tropius, and Pelipper. This team is, according to Go Stadium, is credited to Tati, who I'll link their Twitch, and then as well for the Battles of Fantastic Twitch streamer and battler. Unfortunately, I don't think they have YouTube videos on these ones. At least I couldn't find them. But this is, I'm going to be pretty detailed in my description of this. So essentially, the premise of this is that you want to bait out the Skarmory with Pelipper, since the Skarmory will want to avoid the Galarian Stunfisk, and then you want to sweep with Tropius. So the typical movesets for G-Fist are Mud Shot, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. And then for Tropius, it's Air Slash, Leaf Blade, and Aerial Ace. And then for you can also run Razor Leaf, but I prefer Air Slash. And then for Pelipper, it's Wing Attack, Weather Ball, and Hurricane. I think Pelipper is probably the top 3 best safe switches in the game right now because of that Weather Ball spam. In terms of how you play each of the leads, so on the left is leads, and then on the right are the counter switches. So for example, a Abomasnow lead versus Galarian Stunfisk, you should stay. Against a regular Abomasnow, you win everything but the 2 shield, but even the 2 shield, they have to land the energy ball in order to win. If it's a shadow one, it becomes much more challenging. They actually win, I believe, the 1 and 2 shield, but I would just play it out. You're going to force them to shield first, and then you can farm them down later with Pelipper, as long as you connect with at least 1 Rock Slide. Then Alolan Marowak, you want to stay. You mostly want to, not because it's a pretty neutral matchup. 2 Rock Slide does KO or 1 Earthquake, so it depends on how you want to play it. 1 Shadow Ball or 1 Shadow Bone or Bone Club will not KO. So you're usually in a pretty decent situation. You definitely can control switch advantage. A lot of times people go up to the Earthquake and then throw the Rock Slide. And if they don't shield, you throw the next Rock Slide. If they do shield, then you should Earthquake them. But straight Rock Slide, you should be able to win that matchup. Alolan Ninetales, again, another favorable matchup for Galarian Stunfisk. If they have Charm, then it's a very straightforward matchup, very easy. As a Steel type, Galarian Stunfisk does win the win that matchup pretty easily since it resists Charm. But if it's Powder Snow, it becomes a little bit more complicated because technically they slightly outpace you. You'll need to land 2 Rock Slides, but definitely a really playable matchup. So I recommend that you stay. Altaria, again, another great lead. You win that matchup. You hit with super effective Rock Slides. You resist Dragon Breath. You resist Sky Attack, Dazzling Gleam, Dragon Pulse, whatever they have. And Azumarill, I recommend that you safe switch into Pelipper. That is a winning matchup for Pelipper, but they'll likely switch out unless they have multiple counters for Stunfisk. For Bastiodon, Deoxys, Drifblim, Galvantula, Hypno, those are all very dominating matchups. Bastiodon, straight EQ, you outpace it. Deoxys is 1 EQ, 1 Rock Slide, plus the Mud Shots is usually enough to take out the Deoxys. Drifblim, you want to go Rock Slide. A little bit of complicated matchup, especially if they bait and they're able to land the Icy Wind. So I recommend you don't shield the first one, but it's again totally up to you. Gaventula, straight Rock Slide. You win that matchup very easily. You hit with super effective Rock Slides. You double resist Volt Switch. You double resist Discharge and single resist Lunge. And then as well, you take neutral from Energy Ball. But very few Gaventulas carry Energy Ball in the Great League. And then Hypno, a good matchup. You resist the confusion due to the steel typing. And then they can carry Fire Punch, Shadow Ball, or even Focus Blast. All those, obviously the Focus Blast would probably one-shot you if they do end up baiting you. But you should be able to win that matchup with Galarian Sunfist if you match shields. Machamp, you want to switch to Pelipper. You basically want to stay switch to Pelipper if you run into an unfavorable lead. So Pelipper. Mew, you could stay. It's a little bit tricky matchup. If they have Flame Charge, it's a little bit better for Pelipper and for Galarian Sunfist. If they have Surf, it's actually pretty difficult with Surf, because 2 Surfs will pretty much KO with the Shadow Claw damage Galarian Sunfist, but I do recommend that you go to Pelipper, because a lot of times they'll have a lot like Asian Milkman team of Scrafty, Mew, Scrafty, and Skarmory, but this is usually pretty okay for you. And then Shiftry, I recommend that you go to Pelipper. It's kind of a really uncomfortable matchup for Pelipper, but you do want to try to bait out the Skarmory where you can. And then Surfetch, I recommend switch to Pelipper as well. Skarmory, I recommend that you stay. Opposing Galarian Sunfist, I recommend that you play it out. It is a very bait heavy matchup where a lot of people do like to bait, and people do like to shield, because the Earthquake technically doesn't one shot even after the 8 mud shots that it takes to get to the first Earthquake, but does put Galarian Sunfist very low. Swampert, obviously really bad matchup. You want to switch to Pelipper. Tropius, you want to stay. If it's Razor Leaf, that sucks, because it beats the Galarian Sunfist outside the 0 shield matchup. But you want to be able to just draw a shield and then farm down with your own Tropius later. And then Umbreon, you want to stay. It's a pretty neutral matchup. Yeah, it's a pretty neutral matchup. Typically, the Umbreon wouldn't shield. And then Venusaur, you definitely want to switch to Pelipper. And then if they counter switch, so they bring in that Pokemon, Abomasnow, typically you want to stay. I think that's your best matchup. Alolan Marowak, you want to switch to Pelipper because it's a water type. And then Alolan Ninetales and Altaria, you want to stay, because those are your most favorable matchups. Azumarill, you want to go to Tropius. If they lead a Skarmory and they come into Azumarill, I would not shield the first Ice Beam. You try to CMP tie them if you can, and then it takes 2 Leaf Blades to KO. Obviously, you want to win the switch, but I wouldn't have a lot of health on your Tropius, because then they're just gonna farm down and throw a bunch of Brave Birds into Galarian Stunfisk and put it pretty low. So you want to take the first Ice Beam typically, and if you have a good enough Tropius, then you shouldn't worry too much about the Azumarill matchup. For Bastiodon, Deoxys, Drifblim, Gaventula, and Hypno, if they do switch in, then you're probably likely to have to stay. And then Machamp, you want to go Pelipper. Me, you want to go Tropius, since it doesn't get one-shotted by Wild Charge, so there's less of a shield pressure. Scrafty, you want to go to Pelipper. Shiftry, you want to go Tropius. Surfetch, you want to go into Pelipper. Skarmory, you want to stay. Stunfisk switch-in is really tricky for this team, because if they switch in right away, then you might have to end up playing that matchup. But if they like lead a Skarmory or something that you need the Stunfisk for later, they like, for example, like a Bastiodon or something, that'd be a crazy team. Bastiodon lead and Stunfisk is back, but it can happen. Then you probably do need to switch to Pelipper at some point in time. Swampert, you want to go to Tropius, and then for Tropius, if it's Razor Leaf, you want to go to your own Tropius, because you have Air Slash and have the type advantage, or like the move advantage. If it's Air Slash, then you likely have to stay. And then if it's Umbreon or Venusaur, then you want to go Tropius. Those are both winning matchups. But again, this is all really dependent. Definitely check out these Twitch streamers. Really, really great place to learn how to play these teams. The next team is Metacham, Galarian Stunfisk and Bastiodon. For Metacham, I recommend Counter Power Punch. Some people will like Ice Punch, but I prefer Power Punch just to boost the counter damage. Psychic, and then as well to better bait. Galarian Stunfisk has a standard moveset that we've seen already. Then Bastiodon has Smackdown, Stone Edge, and Flamethrower, which is actually a pretty good moveset for it. There's a bunch of people that I posted on Twitter because I didn't know who initially created it, but Super Saiyan Sensei has been running this double steel hole, tank hole backline for a while. I think ran it with like Pelipper or something like that. Roger Chen 40. Also someone who's running it with Venusaur, Jason 2890. I'll include a link to all their Twitch streams because I don't think any of them have videos, instructive videos on it. There was this Tensei person, this I believe a Japanese trainer that does have a video on it. I'll include that in the description. So go ahead and check out these content creators out. This is a very strong team. Metacham, Stunfisk, and Bastiodon are all very strong and tanky Pokemon. I recommend that you have the XL Metacham since it does allow you to win up some matchups that the level 40, 100% or high IV would not. As you can see, this team has really high bulk, but it has very poor coverage, and then as well, no really great safe switch. Your safe switch, for the most part, is going to be Galarian Stunfisk, and we're just going to talk about the matchups here. For Abomasnow, they basically have nowhere to go, so you want to stay. Alolan Marowak, Ninetales, Altaria, Azumarill, you want to switch to Stunfisk. Azumarill matchup, Azumarill can be really tricky for the team, especially if they're carrying Play Rough and a Hydro Pump. Which is kind of an odd moveset to run, but certainly they could run it. If you shield the right things and they don't shield the Earthquake, then it can actually be a pretty decent matchup for Galarian Stunfisk to win. And then, the rest of them are kind of tricky. And then Bastiodon, you want to stay Deoxys. The way Jason's told me on Twitter is that he likes to throw the Psychic and then go to Galarian Stunfisk, which I like that. For Dripplum, you want to switch. Eventually, you want to switch. Hypno, you want to switch. You basically all want to switch into Stunfisk. Machamp, you want to stay. Scrafty, Shiftry, Surfetch, all opposing Galarian Stunfisk, Swampert, and Umbreon. So anything that Metacham beats really hard, you should switch. Everything else that you should switch out to Stunfisk to basically draw out the Bastiodon counter, whether that's the opposing fighter or something else, and then have them get finished off by Metacham, and then sweep with Bastiodon. And as you can see here, when they switch in, the Bastiodon, as you can see, Bastiodon is so dominant against other Pokemon. Obviously, the Azumarill matchup is very tricky if they have Hydro Pump. If it's an opposing Bastiodon or like anything that you beat really hard, you want to stay. Unless you really need the Metacham, then you should. Then obviously, you can switch. But as you see, Bastiodon just dominates so many Pokemon, even more so than Galarian Stunfisk. So Galarian Stunfisk is a really great safe switch, but Bastiodon can definitely clean things up in the back. So it's definitely a really strong team. Definitely worth checking out and giving it a try. I've seen a lot of people run it with a lot of really great success. This third team is credited to Vergy Verg, Twitch streamer, also YouTuber. I'll include a link to his video and as well his Twitch stream. Really great content creator overall. A really good friend of mine from Texas. He actually uses Munchlax instead of Umbreon now, but I think Umbreon is a very strong Pokemon to use as well. So he typically has this is called the Hypno Double Dark, essentially, and then typically has Confusion, Fire Punch, and Thunder Punch. Some people I've seen run with Focus Blast, which is a very spicy addition. And then Umbreon has Snarl, Foul Play, and Last Resort. And then Scrafty has Counter, Power Up Punch, and Foul Play. And essentially, the premise of this team is to bait out the Azumarill with Umbreon, and then have that Azumarill get finished off by the Hypno, and then as well then Scrafty sweeps in the back. As you can see, this team requires a lot of switching in order to draw out the Azumarill. So Hypno can take out the Azumarill. And as you can see, this is the first three teams are basically we call ABB teams. So like the two back Pokemon serve very similar purposes. So we've seen double flyers with Tropius and Pelipper. We've seen double tanks with Bastiodon and Galarian Stunfisk, and now we see double dark with Scrafty and Umbreon. So against Abomasnow, I recommend you switch to Umbreon. Same thing with Alolan Marowak. Alolan Ninetales, you have to stay, obviously, especially if it has Charm. Altaria, I would even switch. Azumarill, you stay, because that's the Pokemon you obviously want Hypno to meet up against. Bastiodon, Deoxys, Drifblim, you should all switch to Umbreon. The Deoxys one is kind of tricky to deal with, because technically it can beat Hypno and Scrafty, but I think you can play around that. Galvantula, I recommend you stay. Galvantula is really tough for this team, but if you can get those confusions in, then it can really chunk away at the Galvantula, especially if you run the Shadow variant. Hypno, I recommend that you switch to Umbreon. If you can catch a Shadow Ball, do 5 confusions, then go to Umbreon, then it's really favorable for you. Against Machamp, you obviously want to stay. Mew, you want to switch to Umbreon. Scrafty as well, you probably want to stay. This one's really tricky. So I've seen Vergiver play it where he actually throws the first charge move, takes the foul play, then goes immediately into Scrafty, and then hopes that the Scrafty stays in, because it is quite low at that point in time by taking the confusion and in this case Fire Punch or Thunder Punch damage, and then obviously the opposing Scrafty coming in throwing counters at it does chip away at it. Shiftry, I recommend that you switch to Umbreon. Surfetch and Skarmory, I recommend that you stay. And then for Stunfisk, Swampert, Tropius, Umbreon itself, I recommend that you go to Umbreon, and then Venusaur, I recommend that you stay. It's a very favorable matchup for you. And then if they come in Abomasnow, you should go to Scrafty. If they come in AWAC, you should go to Umbreon. If they come in Alolan Ninetales, you should stay, especially if it has Charm. Altaria, you should go to Umbreon. Azumarill, you should stay. That's the matchup that you want. Bastiodon, Scrafty, Deoxys, and Drifblim into Umbreon. Eventually, you want to stay. It's a very tricky matchup again. Umbreon, now Hypno, you want to go to Umbreon. Machamp, you want to stay. Mew, you want to go to Umbreon. Scrafty, Shifter, you want to go to Scrafty. Surfetch, you want to stay. Obviously, a fighting type into a psychic type is very unlikely to happen, but who knows? A Skarmory, you want to go to Umbreon. Stunfisk, you want to go Galarian Stunfisk, you want to go Scrafty. Swampert, you want to go to Umbreon. Tropius, you want to stay, probably, especially since you have the Fire Punch. And then Umbreon, you want to go Scrafty, and then Venusaur, you want to stay. So that's how I would play out this particular team. But again, check out Ricky Verg's video where he covers the team, covers some of his battles, and as well check out the Twitch stream link if you want to ask him any particular questions. But really great content creator, someone definitely worth checking out. This next team, I believe, Jongus, a very strong battler and content creator, both YouTuber and Twitch streamer. I believe he is the one that first popularized this team, but obviously Swampert Skarmory core is super strong and one of the oldest cores in the entire game. And then Galvantula is the third Pokemon. Essentially, what he likes to do, I believe, is actually he has Swampert with Mud Shot, Hydro Cannon, and Sludge Wave, Galvantula with Volt Switch, Discharge, Lunge, and then Skarmory with Air Slash, Sky Attack, and Brave Bird. Basically baits out the counter with either Galvantula or Skarmory. In this case, I prefer Skarmory, because if they come into G-Fist, for example, then you can farm it down with Swampert and then close things out with Galvantula, now that it's one of its hardest counters are off the board. So Abomasnow, I recommend that you switch to Skarmory right away. And then again, I recommend that you always switch to Skarmory as opposed to switching to Galvantula, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But again, this is based off personal preference. This is how I would play it. So Alolan Marowak, you stay. Alolan Ninetales, you should stay as well. Altaria, I recommend that you switch to Skarmory. Azumarill, I recommend that you Sludge Wave first and then go into Skarmory. So hopefully to catch the play rough. If they throw the move before you get the Sludge Wave, it's going to be an Ice Beam. I would no shield it, still throw the Sludge Wave, and still switch to Skarmory, because you want to preserve the Swampert for as long as possible in case they do have a Alolan Marowak or Galarian Stunfisk, which would in the back line, which would beat obviously these two Pokemon in the back. Bastiodon, Deoxys, Drifblim, Galvantula, and Hypno. I recommend that you stay. These are all favorable matchups for you for the most part. Obviously, with Hypno, you have to be careful of the Shadow Ball, but they have to carry Thunder Punch and Fire Punch. It's a really good matchup for you. Deoxys, you have to be careful of the double Psycho Boost. So I recommend that you shield once if they go up to 10, and then catch the second one on Skarmory. If it's Machamp, you go to Skarmory. If it's Mew, you likely stay. You should be able to win that matchup. Hopefully they don't have Grass Knot. Scrafty, Shiftry, and Surfetch, I recommend that you go to Skarmory. And then Skarmory itself against Swampert. It is a good matchup for the Swampert, but you do want to switch out in case they have a Alolan Marowak in the back or Galarian Stunfisk. So what I recommend that you throw the Hydro Cannon, which means they'll probably be at around 4 air slashes. Then you want to throw one more Mud Shot and try to catch the Sky Attack on your Skarmory is what I would recommend. And then Stunfisk, Swampert, I recommend that you stay. Those are probably your most positive matchups. Tropius, I recommend that you switch to Skarmory. Again, I know it's controversial, but there's for sure going to be a Galarian Stunfisk. You could also go to Galvantula here. If you go to Galvantula, you debuff a bunch, then technically you could farm down try to farm down the Galarian Stunfisk. You'll take a lot of damage with Earthquake, even though it's debuffed. With Skarmory, you can put the Galarian Stunfisk so low that you can Mud Shot down for sure. For the Swampert, so it depends on how you want to play it. And then Umbreon, you want to stay, and then Venusaur, you want to switch to Skarmory. But again, you can go to Galvantula for these two grass types, but it's unlikely that you can win switch advantage because oftentimes Tropius and Galarian Stunfisk are paired up with Venusaur and Tropius. If they switch in Abomasnow, switch in Skarmory. If they switch in Alolan Marowak, you want to stay. Alolan Ninetales, Altaria, you want to switch to Skarmory. Azumarill, you want to switch to Galvantula. If you switch out too slow, I wouldn't recommend that you throw the move right away, the lunge or discharge, mostly because then you'll probably end up losing the race to it. Or you'll end up having to shield anyways, and they won't have to shield. So I recommend that you just shield once, build up enough energy, then build up to 2, and then throw the discharges at them. So if they shield the first one, by the time you get to that health, that amount of energy, they'll be in discharge range. If they end up shielding, then you throw the second one. If they don't shield, then you've obviously taken out their Pokemon. Where am I at? So then for Bastiodon, I recommend you stay. Deoxys, I recommend you switch to the Galvantula. Same thing with Drifblim. Galvantula itself, you want to stay. Hypno, you want to switch to Galvantula. Skarmory, you want to switch to Machamp. You want to switch to Skarmory. Mew, you want to switch to Galvantula. I realize here, actually, I don't have Metacham on this list. I'm not entirely sure why I don't, but you treat it very similar to the other fighters. Not really too much different. Scrafty, you want to go to Skarmory. Shiftry, you want to go to Skarmory. Surfetch, etc., etc. Galvantula, for Skarmory, you want to go to Galvantula, and then for G-Fist and Swampert, you want to stay. Those are probably your best matchups. Tropius, you want to go to Skarmory. And then Umbreon, you want to go to Galvantula. Then Venusaur, you want to go into Skarmory. So pretty straightforward team. Swampert Skarmory core is super strong. Basically, those two Pokemon, if lined up correctly, basically take out any Pokemon in the entire meta. I don't think there's any significant core breakers to... I guess Galvantula is kind of a core breaker to those two. Or Shadow Abomasnow. But even then, those both Pokemon have really, really close matchups actually against both. So, anyways, we're going to move on to this next team, which is Venusaur, Stunfisk, Galarian Stunfisk, and Sableye. This is a technical team. I don't know how to say his technical team. Anyways, Though team, I'm gonna include a link to his YouTube video. He calls it his tryhard team, which is Venusaur, Galarian Stunfisk, and Sableye. He does have return on his Sableye, which is what I recommend as well, and that's the purified version. It's unlikely they're gonna have the XL version of it because I'm not sure where you're gonna get the candy, but this is totally fine. This is a very strong team. Venusaur is super strong in the meta, and then paired up with Galarian Stunfisk is a really strong core, and then Sableye is a great flex pick
So you're mostly going to be able to safe switch into Sableye if you run into unfavorable matchups. So Bombasnow, you want to go into Sableye. Alolan Marowak, you want to go into Sableye. Alolan Ninetales, you kind of have to stay. If it's Charm, it's really good for you. If it's Powder Snow, it's pretty bad for the team. It's very challenging. I'm not sure there's a clear way to win this. When I played this team, I basically caught the second Weather Ball onto Sableye, but even then that was kind of tricky there. Or maybe it was the third one. Like I took one, and then no, I shielded one, and then I caught the third one. But it's just a very tricky situation here. Altaria, you want to go to Sableye. Azumarill, you want to stay. Bastion, you want to stay. Deoxys, I recommend that you Frenzy Plan and then try to catch the move onto Stunfisk. Drifblim, I recommend that you switch to Sableye. Galvantula, I recommend that you stay. Try to get an extra Vine Whip through and then double Frenzy Plan. It's probably your easiest way to win that game or to potentially win that matchup. Hypno, I recommend that you go to Sableye, and then Machamp, Mew, Scrafty, Shiftry, and Surfetch, I recommend that you stay. Those are all winnable matchups. Skarmory, I recommend that you go to Sableye. Stunfisk, I recommend that you stay. Swampert, obviously stay. Tropius, if it's Razor Leaf, you can stay, you can win that matchup. If it's Air Slash, you go to Sableye. Umbreon, I recommend that you stay. It's a little bit tricky matchup, but should be favorable for Venusaur. And then Venusaur, you're basically playing the mirror match. You want to try to get extra Vine Whip through, throw the Sludge Bomb, etc., etc. If they counter switch, so if they go into a Bombasnow into your Venusaur after they lost the lead, then you want to go to Stunfisk. If they go into Marowak, go to Sableye. If they go to Alolan Ninetales, go to Stunfisk. Altaria, go to Stunfisk. Azumarill, you want to stay. And then Bastion, you want to go Stunfisk. Deoxys. Drifblim, you obviously want to go Sableye. Galvantula, you want to go to Stunfisk. If they go to Hypno. Machamp, then I recommend that you go to Sableye. If they come Mew, Scrafty, Shiftry, Surfetch, I recommend that you stay. That's probably your best matchup that you can have. Skarmory, you want to go Stunfisk. Stunfisk, you probably likely want to stay. Same thing with Swampert. And then if it's Razor Leaf, you want to stay on the Tropius. If it's Air Slash, go to Stunfisk. And then Umbreon and Venusaur, you want to stay. Those are probably your best matchups for it. As you can see, this team has decent coverage and not that much bulk. But this is probably the only quote-unquote balanced team where the two Pokemon don't have overlapping purposes. And typically what will happen is when you safe switch into Sableye, they'll typically go into Azumarill because they want to avoid the Venusaur matchup. And if you land the return and then if they shield the first return, I recommend that you double shield and land the return, so then you can be able to Shadow Claw down afterwards. Once you land the return, though, you can just basically build up, and then right before they get to their second charge move, you can throw the Foul Play, which would KO. If they end up shielding that, then you shield the second one, and then you farm down. And then typically what will happen is they'll have one shield, you'll have 0, but you'll have loaded energy on Sableye, which will allow you to get the shield back, and as well you won switch advantage. But even if you don't end with switch advantage, you can farm down with the Venusaur afterwards, and then throw a lot of energy. But obviously they could have a Skarmory, which you want to try to avoid that matchup. But Sableye, again, is a top 3 safe switch. I said Sableye, Defense Deoxys, and Pelipper are the 3 best safe switches in the game right now. They all these Pokemon can do tremendous work, and then as well have very few hard counters in the meta. Anyways, I'm gonna leave there. Let me know what you think. Check out the links to all the videos, the content creators. You can definitely learn more about how to play these teams. If you want me to play these teams, go ahead and follow me on Twitch. Recommend these teams, 1,500 channel points, which you accumulate by watching, and then I'll play those teams for a set, and as well walk through my thought process. And maybe if I'm successful with the team, I'll cover it later on YouTube. Anyways, I'm gonna leave there. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see everyone in the next video.